Yo, yo, yo! Welcome to another episode of the Off the Tools podcast with me, Wayne Bettess, and Mr. Andy Jones on my left or right. Depends on which way you're looking at it. Don't know. Depends where the screen is. Right if you're in the screen, left if you're not. Right, Andy?
Welcome back to part two of
part
the big
two,
one.
Baby.
This gained way more traction than we expected, so we've split it. So welcome back. Hope you enjoyed.
So if you haven't listened to part one, that will be episode number 41. This is 42, I believe. I hope I'm right. Really hope I'm right there. Okay.
So yeah, we're going to jump straight back in. So we've done the first 10 of these 20 hidden costs that are possibly destroying your trade business. I'm going to kick that off with staff turnover, something that I have decent experience on, as do yourself. So this is a topic in of itself, really. But there's a few things, really. Staff turnover. So this can be, if you've got a high staff turnover, it generally a multitude of things. From my input on this, poor vetting to start with. So not taking the time to vet them and spend the time. So, for example, in our heating business, we will have a initial phone conversation. Whether it's me or my office manager would do it, then they would come in for an in-person interview, for which that would be then for the office manager and the lead engineer to interview them, and myself if I can facilitate the time. They would then go out and do a stage 2 interview, which would be a day on site with the senior engineer, so that they could have a look at the software, they could see how we do things, etc., etc. So that is quite a substantial vetting process that you would have a very good idea of by the end of that process, that 3-step process, if they're going to be a good fit for the business. If they're not, then you move on to the next one. If you're not putting something like that in place, you're just going, oh yeah, he seems decent, I had a chat to him, you start on Monday, then you're already running a massive risk of it being wrong. And then the next point really is taking the time to train them properly. This has got to be right up there with the biggest issue with staff turnover, as far as I'm concerned. And we've lads in the alliance need realigning on this sometimes, even within the alliance, because Wayne spoke about it a few times of hiring when you're busy causes a shit ton of problems if the profit isn't there in the business, which is why we always say sometimes a lot of the time lads are better to increase their prices and reduce the volume so that the walk away is the same amount of money, but they're under less stress, because too many guys hire additional field staff because they are busy and not based on the numbers. If your numbers are good, you can do what a lot of the lads in the alliance are able to do, which is hiring in advance of you needing them. For example, in the heating game, lads are hiring in the summer because there's enough money in the game, getting them dialed in, and then you can capitalize on the winter. I'm bowing. If you don't take the time to train them, it will bite you in the arse later down the line. Do not hire someone, field staff, stick them out in a van and hope for the best, because you'll create more work for yourself, whether it be in the short term with it, they're doing stuff wrong on the job management, or they're doing stuff wrong on site. You're going to have to keep implementing, your own guidance of it. It could have been done in the beginning, or it turning out that they're not cut out for the job and then they end up leaving. Breathe.
There we go. Well, that was some fire there, ladies and gentlemen, to start part 2 with the first one of part 2, which was staff turnover. Gosh, where do I go with that? Other than I agree. It's the only thing. I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate here. So you can have high turnover of staff, sometimes down to high expectations or unachievable expectations as well. So sometimes it's a matter of looking at ourselves and being like, am I expecting too much of this guy? Am I expecting too much of Dave, Joe, whoever it is that's joined the team? and maybe having a little bit of a reset on what it is that you expect these guys to do, because you've got to remember it's your business, not theirs. Yeah. So there's always this sort of iteration, isn't there, between what they're willing to do and what you're willing to do. So just thought I'd caveat that with that until we move on to the next step, which is knowing your numbers. So we briefly
this is what big one for Wade.
this is we briefly touched on it when we mentioned about pricing, but wow, knowing your numbers. If there is anything that you must do, it must be that you understand the numbers in your business. And with making tax digital is obviously a hot topic at the moment. Lots of smaller self-employed people and bitch moaning about it. I actually love it because the consequences of it mean that people have to know. Well, I say they have to know that someone has to know their numbers. So whether it be their accountant or them, that's another discussion, which I'll circle back to. But I actually for once I agree with that they're implementing, because as a small business and working with hundreds, if not thousands, of small businesses across the country, the biggest thing that is a sign that they're on the downward spiral is that they don't know the numbers. And what I mean by that is they don't know how much it's costing them every day to run their business. They don't know how much it costs them to turn the lights on, to get an engineer out to a job, which subsequently means that they're not pricing correctly. So back to one of our earlier points from episode one, the first part of this. And so many businesses fail because whether they choose not to see, I think there are some cases where they're choosing not to see. Other people just don't know. They just delegate it to their accountant and they basically abdicate their responsibility. I'm a firm believer in using experts for their job. Again, referencing my patio, right? I could lay a patio, but I'm not an expert. Yeah, it would take me longer. It's going to be harder. So I'm going to pay a guy or a team, or have paid a team to come in and lay that patio. But it's my patio, right? So if I'm watching and I see that they're doing something that I'm not happy with or that isn't right, I need to know. I need to be aware of that. And you can't have expertise in everything, Like I'm not going to be able to watch a heart surgeon cut someone open and fucking tell them, "Oh, you're doing that a bit wrong, mate." Obviously not. But when you're running a business, you should know the basics of the numbers in your business. So outsourcing it to an accountant is fine, but do not abdicate that responsibility to understand those numbers, understand what the profit and loss means, understand what the balance sheet shows, understand the allocation of money in your business. So some of you call it the profit first method. You know that I do it slightly different, same principle though. If you're not doing all of this stuff in your business and taking control of the numbers, both the numbers on the screen, but also the numbers in the actual bank account, then sadly, you're going to be one of those, 80% of businesses that fail in the first 5 years or something like that, isn't it? So know your goddamn numbers, people.
I have no input on that because I know it's Wayne's passionate. I just
I just know the pain of not knowing compared to the pain of the pressure release of knowing, because man, I want to know if I'm heading towards a cliff. I don't want to be running 100 miles an hour and just fucking fall off a cliff. I want to be able to see there's a cliff in a mile time. I need to change the course I'm on, otherwise I'm running straight off the edge. I would rather have that pre-warning and that insight and that wisdom to know, okay, there's some danger happening up here. Let's stop, or let's adjust paths. Let's seek some guidance from some people that maybe know a bit more than me, rather than just run blindly off the cliff and think that you were doing the right thing. It's so sad to see.
It's an ongoing process as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A lot of you won't experience the emotional. So when I have these conversations with people, because not everything we do is good. Yeah, I have many phone calls where I have broken men on the phone, and they are getting control of their business. They're trying, but they realise, shit, shit, I fucked up. And when you hear a grown man sobbing on the end of the phone to a relative stranger, me in that case, you know, when they're first starting to work with me, it hits home. It hits home the pain that this causes on people, on families, you know, the amount of relationship breakups that I hear of because of where they've just put too much strain on the business because they've not taken control. And it comes back to knowing the numbers. And sorry, I know I'm sort of going back on what I've said here again, like, you know, I'm repeating myself, but it's just so important. Yeah, sorry, God, move on before I carry on again.
Nothing further to add. So yeah, next point. Oh, you catch your breath. Poor time management.
God, can I go on this one as well? No, I'll let you have it.
So a little bit, obviously, of continuation what we were saying before, in episode number 1, or part 1 rather, about, you know, optimizing the scheduling side of things. It's the same thing, but you could throw a few other angles in this. Like, obviously, we've spoke about quoting. So your time management can be things like, you know, a lot of the lads will go and they'll spend a lot of time quoting jobs and not see that as either lost revenue or not view it in the same light. It's, you know, it's a little bit like the fault find analogy, you know, when you get that kickback from the customer. Oh no, I just want you to come and look at the boiler. I don't want you to do anything. Yeah, that's a fault find. It's this much. No, I'm not wanting you to do anything. I just want you to come and tell me, you know what I mean? It's just this like,
yeah, I want you to drive to my house, unload your tools, use your 20, 10, 5, whatever it is, years of experience to tell me what's wrong. And then I want you to drive home and not expect anything in return. That sounds like a deal, Andy. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it. So the reason why it's relevant for time management side of things is that you need to look at how your time is spent. Obviously, we're talking about on-site stuff now, and decide if that's viable. So a good comeback from that for customers as well. If we didn't charge for our time, A, we wouldn't be a particularly good business, and B, we wouldn't be offering out a service such as a fault find. You know what I mean? You ring me up and say, oh, you know, your lights are tripping when you turn this particular light on. Yes, we can come out and we can do a fault find, but I'm not just going to come out and have a look and go, yeah, it looks like you need a new light, or whatever it is, or a boiler fault find where you're delving into the, you know, like you said, we're getting your tools out and delving into the boiler. So that is time management. And if it's not, this is why, again, quoting softwares are so viable and valuable in today's age. You can send a quote out for something like that, and if they don't want to go ahead, then they don't want to go ahead, and you're not wasting your time. Again, the estimate example we used before, like, poor time management would be sitting down doing a big heat pump calculation for a customer to then say, no, that's too much. You send an estimate out in advance, and as you said, if it's not in the window that they were expecting, they can decline. If it is, they can accept the estimate, click accept. You can then spend the time and use it. Another point on that, time management is a little bit of an add-on from the everything needing to go through the owner. Time management, a lot of time management is outsourcing certain parts of the business that do not need the owner to do, like answering the phone, for example. You know, another one of classic trading thing. Oh no, I need to answer the phone so I can understand what the customer wants. You know, what's going to happen is the customer's going to start grilling you and get answers over the phone because you're a tradesman and you're a tradesman in your field. You know, getting someone to answer the phone for you positions the business better, but also then you're not wasting time. Even if it's just you as a one-man band, you've got someone answering the phone for you. You can spend more time on site as well as having a clearer headspace for when you're on site.
Yeah. If you don't control your time, somebody else does, you know, so why not make that a priority? Why not make sure that you take that control on your diary? I think I've got some free training on it, haven't I, on the non-negotiable diary and stuff like that. If you head over to the school community, I think if you scan that QR code on the screen, or if you go to the Facebook group or whatever, you'll see a link somewhere to the school community where there's loads of free resources, free videos, and I think one of them that is free that is on time management. And yeah, I think it's very important to plug that hole in the business. Right, moving on to another one, which is buying, selling on price instead of value. Okay, interesting. Do you want to elaborate on that one, Andy, to kickstart us?
Yeah, one of my mentors from a few years ago loved that popular phrase of price is what you pay, value is what you get. And that just crops up so often in life, but especially in business. Because again, if your business is a premium business and you've got things like an admin team and you've got sales lion, quote lion, service mate, etc. running, then it's no longer about price, it's about value, because you're providing more value. If you've got someone that can answer the phone straight away, within a certain window, then that is increasing the value that you're giving to the customer. If you're, the stuff we said before, you're sending a booking confirmation, you're sending a booking reminder, giving them a text when they're on the way, you've got follow-ups to say, did everything go well, things like that. You're providing digital certification, you're increasing the value of what you're doing. As me and Wayne keep saying, the world that we live in now, 50% of the value comes from what's on site, but the other 50% of the value comes from outside of it and what wraps around the job. Like we keep talking about, someone answering the phone, customer getting confirmation of the booking, follow-ups, review requests and things like that, keeping the customer in the loop, automated reminders for any annual base work, whether it's, a boiler service, CP12, EICR certificate, anything like that, stuff that's recurring, whether it be, yearly, 5 yearly, whatever it might be. That is a delivery of value to a customer that is outside of the job itself. So the trick with you as a business owner is to sell what you're selling, whatever your business is selling, based on value, not based on the price. And obviously, our heating business is a more premium business, so this is something I am well versed in and also quite passionate about, because we get that kickback a lot of the time. And one final point I'll make that analogy on is, and I'm sure loads and loads of guys have experienced this, they will have conversations with you or your business, and let's say they get multiple quotes for a job. The common one is, I want you to do the work, but I've had a quote for this much. If you can match that, you can have the work. And what they're basically saying with that is, I want the value from you, but the price from the cheap guy.
But at the price of dodgy Dave down the road.
So listen to a book I recommend called Winning Through Intimidation. And it's a good mindset shift. We'll come back to mindset in a minute, but it's a good mindset shift of not letting customers bully you down to a price that suits them when they are wanting of your services and the value that you bring. But I could talk about that one for a while, but
I agree. So moving on to the next one, which is lack of training. Obviously, again, this could be a whole podcast in itself, couldn't it? The lack of education on running a business, for example, is only going to lead to losing money, isn't it? If you don't understand how to run a business, how to market a business, how to manage a business, how to lead a business, how to be a businessman and entrepreneur, then guess what? You're going to do things fucking wrong, isn't you? It's kind of simple. You learn the trade. Yeah, you were willing to sacrifice some of you 6 months, some of you 2 years, some of you 5 years to learn the trade of being a heating engineer, an electrician, a builder, a carpenter, a fucking aircon person, whatever it might be. You sacrificed a big chunk of time to learn that skill. But then you go and set up a business and you're not willing to throw a few grand at some business training and mentorship and it's like mind blowing the lack of willingness to. I think it's a man thing as well. I think that's part of the problem. I think it's like an ego. We did a whole episode on ego, didn't we? I think sometimes it's like, I am the big bad man. I can do this all on my own. I don't need help. I don't need support. I'm good. Me strong, mentality. When in reality, the strongest people I know are those that are in groups of men on the same mission. I would rather pull a boat with 4 or 5 of my off the tools lads, that have got my back, that are going to help me. They're going to lift it when I'm tired. They're going to carry the weight sometimes when I might not have the strength. They're going to turn my attitude from being negative to positive because they want to see me succeed. I would much rather be part of that than just try and fucking throw it on my back and get on with it myself, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm sorry if it turns people off, but I've got to be true to myself. I've recently found religion, and I've been going to church, the family, and everything. And the biggest, singlest thing that I can say is try it, man. The people I'm meeting at church just want me to win. They just want me to be happy. They just want me to do well. They want me to thrive. They want me to be a good dad. They want me to be a good husband. And back to the support system, I'm going off subject here, but I just needed to mention that because it has been game changing for me the last few months, embracing all of that side of the world. I'm not here to preach to you unless you do want it. If you want to know more, then drop me a message. But for now, I'll leave it there. But yeah, they're off the tools.
It's the same principle with off the tools.
Yeah, exactly. The principle is you want to surround yourself with people on the same mission, with similar goals, similar aspirations in life, similar beliefs, and you'll be absolutely amazed at where that can take you. Trust me, just trust me on that.
A rising tide lifts all ships is a good summary,
yeah.
and I do like that phrase.
And I actually think that's from the Bible as well, Andy, just so you know.
I'm surprised.
I believe it is. I imagine people said
it. I imagine most quotes will come from a religious book or from Greek philosophy type stuff that we're both big fans of, Stoicism based quotes.
Definitely. So training, anything else to add on that, my friend?
No, just training doesn't have to be sitting in a classroom sort of mindset. One thing I will add that again I'm passionate about is, as you said, guys are chasing to get better at what they do. And I'm sure most guys won't challenge me when I use the statement that the majority of the trade industry is filled with accidental business owners. We've said
best
this
phrase that one.
Yeah, because it's been so easy to be self-employed. So it's just full of accidental business owners. They don't really want to be. It's just this being self-employed is rarely viewed as owning a business. Yes, if there's guys that are doing almost all of their work for other companies as a subcontractor, then you're self-employed, but you don't really have an actual business as such. But if you're managing your own customers, then it's obviously a different story. You've got a business there. But it's this lack of embracing it. There seems to be a resistance to it, like tradesman first, business owner second. And they're very resistant. We've had loads of conversations on social media platforms with guys who are just so resistant to change and implementing things. And why it's a shame? I'll tell you why it's a shame. I had more of this conversation with that guy I mentioned yesterday. It's a shame because they will, their businesses will die in the next 5 years. 10 if you've got some, collateral in the bank to support it. But that stubbornness and the ego thing will prevent you from moving forward, because if you're being, I don't need to do any marketing. I get all my work from word of mouth. I've got news for you. If you did marketing, you could charge more. If you did marketing, you'd have more customers. If you did marketing, you could increase your pricing and make more money from the same amount of work. But the real knife in the wound really is that those word of mouth customers, they're not all going to come back to you if you're not doing things in a proper way. Expecting a customer to ring you when their boiler service is due, when you've not prompted them in any way is not going to happen, which rolls me into the next point, which is no systems. You like how I did that?
Yeah, I do. You're getting better, Andy. You're getting better, mate.
And that's just one point to start on that. If you don't have systems, you are losing customers. So whether that's from the annual or 5-yearly reminder stuff that I mentioned slightly earlier of, boiler servicing, CP12s, EICRs, a good one. Again, I mentioned about having the trees cut in my garden. I need to get on the phone to the owner of that business and have a chat with him, because maintenance-based businesses, we talk a lot about heating, but it extends into so much. And I think gardening, tree surgery, things like that is just as easy to attack from a recurring maintenance perspective, if not easier in some ways. Like, I've got conifers that grow out, anyone knows conifers grow like fuck, and they need to be trimmed every year, ideally twice a year if it wants to get a bit
they
bigger.
Just run rampant, don't they?
Yeah. So that should be put into a booking software, a job management software, where they're getting an annual reminder in the spring and in the autumn. Your whatever reminder system you want to build, and you can make it bespoke. But your hedge trimming, annual hedge trimming is up for renewal, or whatever side of it might be, which you can't really implement without a system. Some guys try and do it. As I said before, they're expecting customers to ring them back. It ain't going to happen, because someone can step in there and take that work. If a customer, I'll just give you another example from a boiler service perspective. If a customer, you're waiting for them to ring you, and they're not tracking when it's due, and you're not tracking when it's due, they know it's due sometime soon, and then a card or a flyer drops through the door from another business. They're just going to go, oh yeah, I'll ring these. Whereas if you've got a system in place that, like ServiceMate, what we build for the lads in Alliance, and more importantly, probably from a reminder system, Sales Lion, that reminder and keeping them in the loop system, for the lads, we build out things like, for a boiler service, they'll have a 6-month check-in. Then they'll have a 10-month, 11-month, 12-month, just a soft reminder. We'll bring some value. Boiler working okay. Let us know if you need any advice. You need to top the pressure up, whatever your service is due. And then obviously you're keeping them in the loop. That's keeping that customer safe from other businesses taking them. Because if someone said, someone took the fly through the door, or they was able to have a conversation with them, oh no, so such a company looks after it. They keep track of when the service is due.
And that leads us perfectly into the next point, which was customer churn, doesn't it? Losing, like churning through. So what we mean by customer churn is like not keeping hold of your customers. So a perfect example was the lack of systems can cause the churn of customers, can't it, through the business? And it's far harder to sell to a new customer than it is to sell to a customer that already likes and trusts you. So you've got to make sure that you have stuff in place to look after and limit the customer churn in your business, because I see far too many people just chuck money at marketing for new customers. Well, hang about, gents. Why don't we park some of that budget and look after the fucking customers that have already paid our mortgages for the last 10 years or whatever it is? Let's do something that makes their life better. Let's have an online booking system. Let's have the calls answered quickly and efficiently, so that these customers don't have to go off and find somebody else and forget about us, instead of constantly just chasing that sexy new bit of marketing or whatever it is, that new customer. It's like chasing the new tail at the nightclub, isn't it? Just be happy with what you've got. They're reliable.
Nice point on that as well, is that when you've got good software running like Sales Lion, when a customer rings in who you've done work for before, all of their data will come up when they're ringing through. So whether you're answering it or ideally the admin staff are answering it, they know who it is because it will come up on the phone system. They can answer the phone in a more polite way of, oh, hi Wayne, how are you doing? For example, as opposed to just, a generic thing, and they can give that more personal approach. And you get a lot of good feedback from things like that. The customers will say it's nice to be to be known again and remembered from the company. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, customer churn is just wild, and that's again what's killing off most of the small players who aren't concentrating on retaining those existing customers. And as I've just said on the previous point, expecting and waiting for customers to get back in touch with them, it just doesn't happen anymore. It used to, and I'm sorry if you don't like it, but you know, you are losing customers year on year. The problem is if guys aren't, you know, tracking customers, which chances are if they're not using any software to keep them, they won't be tracking the ones that they lose because they won't fucking know. So they go, no, I'm doing all right. But then it's just little things, you know, if you're making slightly less than the year before, and then you're slightly less, you're losing customers and you don't really realize it.
And then, and then that then plays a part, because then you don't have as much cash flow, which then means that you're not spending any more money on marketing or nurture campaigns, and you know, and it's a vicious cycle. And what's that saying, when like rot sets in, it sets in fast or something, isn't it? You know, basically you eat yourself alive, didn't you, from the inside, because just slowly you're just killing off bits of the business.
It's the Ouroboros analogy. It's like the analogy is it's a snake eating its own tail.
Okay, yes,
yeah, like, and it's like a circle, but
I like that. Makes sense.
Right,
poor purchasing is the number 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so we're on number 18 over 2 episodes here. So this was a lot to consume. Poor purchasing. Okay, I'm starting with this, right? Oh. Sorry. I see far too many of you lot, right? And this is aimed at Alliance members and lads that have reached out to me and spoke to me, that make poor purchasing decisions, whether that be personally, you know, they buy that Range Rover, or they book these holidays that they can't afford, or they buy new stuff for the business, new tools, new fancy stuff that makes everything look great, and this will work, this will help, blah, 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 blah. Poor purchasing seriously is a big issue. Seriously is, and people don't realise it because they look at their bank account and there's 20 grand and they go, oh, I'll buy the new ladders and the corset and the fucking new work trousers and the latest screwdriver Wearer set. When in reality, of that 20 grand, probably 2 was actually theirs. The time they factor in that, the materials, all of that stuff. So poor purchasing and poor decision, I think, poor purchasing decision making is very, very important to get a handle on. Hands up, all of us. I'd say all of us, but hands up if you, in the last 12 months, have bought something that you know really was not really the best decision. Could have maybe done without it, didn't really need to spend that money. I think we could all say we do it. And, you know, some people say, oh, fuck it, you only live once, you know, do what you need to do. Yeah, I get that. I understand. But we also have responsibilities as business owners, you know, as leaders of our homes, to not make stupid, childish decisions when it comes to buying stuff. And that's just on a luxury point of view. But we're also making these decisions every day when we're going to that supplier that's ripping the arse out of us just because we like the freaking look at a saleswoman in the back, or whatever it might be, or the coffee they sell is nice, or you know, or you can hide away there for half an hour so no one sees your van, or whatever it might be. You know, we've all fallen foul of poor purchasing decisions, haven't we?
A good point that I'm going to jump in on, because it's there's a few points that sort of roll into one. So them key points really are poor stock planning, not bulk buying, understocking common items, and overstocking slow moving items. So if you're, let's say, you know, a heating business or electrical business, there's going to be things that are super common for you to do, for you to use for customers. So again, we'll use the heat analogy because it's easier. Standardizing and bulk buying for your standardized products, which are common items such as burner gaskets, causes problems, because what happens then is that poor stock planning pushes engineers to collect parts. To give you a scenario, engineer goes to do a strip down service on a boiler, doesn't have the burner gasket on the van. He's already cracked open the combustion chamber. He can't put it back together. He then has to go out and buy what you might refer to as an emergency part. So you're going to pay potentially over the odds. You might not be near one of your own suppliers. So you're going to have to pay over the odds, suffer that, because you're not going to be able to give the customer the extra cost. It's probably a standardized cost. So imagine that mounting up. What you really should be doing is having a stock management system, even if it's a manual one, where you're going to keep track of the common jobs, for example, the common boilers or the common sockets that you're fitting, and keep a stock in each van. And obviously, potentially, if you've got a unit or an office, then have an additional stocking system where the team will draw the stock from that to allow you to track everything. But the poor purchasing and stock management are kind of intrinsic to each other.
No, I agree. Any more points to make on poor purchasing? I think we've emphasized the importance of it, haven't we?
Obviously it spreads out a little bit more, like with things like making sure you're paying the right money to your suppliers, keeping an eye on pricing. A lot of the time, the laziness kicks in and guys will be buying everything from one place. But especially on inventory stock items, you might find 2 or 3 suppliers are the right, let's say City Plumbing can't match Wolsey for a particular part, so you have to get from there. So again, another advocate for the admin role, that that's a job for an admin person to track. We get, create a spreadsheet, we get these parts from here, these parts from here, and these parts from here. So it all delves into, being more of a business owner when you view things, rather than, again, that classic tradesman of, I'm just going to nip to the merchants and buy X, Y, and Z, when in reality you could have pre-planned stocking of certain parts that could save you, it might only be, £100 a week, but that's £100 a week.
That's a lot of money.
Soon adds up, doesn't it? And it results in lower profit on every job. You've got downtime to go and get the part, you pay an extra for the part, so on and so forth.
Agree. Right. So moving on to the last 2. So the penultimate one is equipment downtime. So obviously the obvious thing here is things like vans, flue gas analysis, stuff like that, like equipment that you use sort of on a day-to-day basis, not being organized and not being ahead of the maintenance on it, I guess, is really the point here, isn't it? And allowing it to the point where it's out of action, which then means there's downtime.
Yeah, it's kind of a self-explanatory one, really. This is why. So, the van's probably one of the easiest examples for the kind of guys that we speak to. And there was a post on it the other day again about leasing versus like buying new HP and buying an older van. And again, most guys had that classic tradesman mindset of wanting to own the van outright. I went out and bought a 3-year-old van and now it doesn't owe me anything, which is great. And if it works, then of course it's the better thing, providing nothing goes wrong. The problem is when it does, and it can be catastrophic. So you can lease or HP a brand new decent van for like £400 a month versus buying one. If that van goes down, not only have you got the repair costs on this older van, that downtime is where the real costs hit, because every day that it's off the road, there's hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Let's say the van's off the road for a whole week, plus some repair costs, total, let's say £5,000 worth of repair. Let's say the gearbox goes on the van, loads of repair work, thousands in lost revenue. That £5,000, that's a year's worth of lease payments.
It's crazy, isn't it?
You can get lucky with the van and it not go down on you, but if it does, that's when it bites you in the arse. And anyone who's ever been burned by a van going down, then will probably be more in the crew of having something brand new. And the leasing gives you a little bit more protection. And if it's your van as the business owner, then leasing is a great way of doing it, because you know you're going to look after the van. You know, you might want to HP the ones that the lads are driving if you've got engineers out, but for yourself, you could always lease it, because you know you're going to look after it and you're not going to get stung at the end of the term.
Yeah.
Anything else to add on that?
No, not really. Just sort of like being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to stuff that you're in charge of, so that you're not left holding a pile of shit, you know, and not left in the lurch with no vehicle or no tool to do a certain job or whatever. You know, just stay ahead of the game, be organised. Comes back to having good time management and cash management, though, doesn't it? Because if you know certain things like your vans need servicing and looking after, if you're organised and everything like that, it all plays part of that, doesn't it? You'd have it booked in, or the office lady would be in charge of it, or whatever. So yeah, I think you've covered the point there. Let's move on to the final point, shall we? Do you want to start this one, mate?
Yeah, again, this is another one where it's a podcast in and of itself, because it's just so prevalent. So for those that have been listening for a while will know that I left the trades game for a couple of years and tried my hand at another business. While I didn't stay with that path, if you will, in that business, I learned a shitload, and it was based in the property sector. And one big thing that I took away from that is the mindset of people operating in that sector versus the mindset of trades business owners. And it was just absolutely worlds apart. It was that millionaire mindset of aim for the stars. You know, the world's your oyster. You know, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve if you work hard enough with the right guidance and education, etc. Versus this classic closed in, I'm as I said before, tradesman first, business owner second. And that's that mindset is what keeps tradesmen trapped. When in reality, in 2026, it's so easy to scale your trade business to a point where you really don't, you can either take yourself out with the business, or most lads don't want to do that, but outsource the stuff that either you don't want to do or is a bad use of your time. So, you know, as we're forever saying, like, you're the business owner, you're the tradesman, you shouldn't be answering the phone. But it's the mindset and the fear of growth that says, well, actually, no, I don't want to take on an admin person because, you know, I can't afford to or whatever. Like, whereas the growth will, the growth will fuel the salary anyway. And the role itself that you take on will fuel the growth. But it's just this mindset thing, isn't it? Of, no, I'm just a tradesman. You know what I mean? And if you don't, again, I'm going on and on about it, but unfortunately, lads and girls, if you don't embrace the mindset of the fact that you're a business owner, you will lose out big style. You'll end up being you're either probably already not making enough money, or what will happen is slowly but surely you'll start to lose customers to the business, the guys that look at it as a business rather than just a trade, and you'll end up doing more and more work for either for those businesses or for, you know, builders, letting agents and that, because you're not getting and or securing your own private domestic customers.
I don't know where else to go with that, to be fair, but all I do know is that probably should have been number one, because without the right mindset, everything else is fucking very, very difficult. And there's been seasons in my life where my mindset hasn't been on in the right place, and guess what? Nothing fucking changes when you're stuck in that zone. You know, it stays the same. Shit happens. Day becomes the monotonous. Everything becomes a pain. You become an arse at home. You know, when you start to go, do you know what? Let's just fucking lift that chin. Just lift that chin up that little bit. Stop fucking looking down. Look up. See what's in front of you, and you start to realise, do you know what? You know, if he can do it or she can do it, why can't I? There's plenty of examples, you know. We're not short of examples. You imagine 50 years ago, it was probably pretty hard to get inspired by somebody, you know, because you probably weren't able to see it that often. You might see the Range Rover drive past, or you might be lucky enough to drive through the estate that has the big houses and whatever, and that maybe would be enough to spark you. Today, you go on Instagram for 2 minutes, and yeah, some of it's bullshit, of course it is. But you know, if you train your algorithm, and you like, my algorithm is on point in a minute. I am loving as I'm only going on it for like 10, 15 minutes a day, but I'm loving it because it's showing me all stuff that is just filling me up with energy, filling me up with stuff that powers me on. Anyway, back to my point. You can get inspiration quite easily now. You can see examples. You can find people that have come from worse backgrounds than you, no matter where you start from. You know, there'll be someone out there that with a quick search you'll be able to find that has been there, worked through it, and gone on to create whatever it might be, whether it be the perfect home for them and their family, whether it be an amazing business, whether it be an amazing body, maybe it's a mix of all three. You know, you will be able to find that inspiration. And once you start to, and inspiration and stuff like that is short-lived, right? So it needs to be permanent change, but it starts, you know, do you agree or disagree, Andy? It starts with a bit of inspiration, doesn't it? A bit of motivation.
Yeah, a little spark.
They go, the inspiration and motivation go, but the mindset stays behind if you carve that out of the motivation and inspiration. That was the point I was trying to make. Would you agree? I haven't completely fucked that up, have I? You know?
No, it's like the discipline over motivation. You can, like, me and Wayne both use ice baths. The problem is there's times where you can be motivated to use them, and times where the motivation has waned, but it's the discipline. It's like going to the gym, isn't it? It's the discipline, or taking action in your business, pushing your business forward.
Prime example of that ice bath is like, it's a 25-degree day. You've just gone out for a run. Guess what? You're getting in that fucking ice bath because you don't need any reason to get in that. You flip that and it's a 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning and it's fucking freezing cold. It's pissing down with rain. Guess what? The motivation ain't getting you in there, is it? It's the discipline. And Jocko Willink, isn't it? That the American is discipline equals freedom. And yeah, sorry to jump in there.
So some closing thoughts from my end on that. The business doesn't generally lose money. I'm going to put fail in the same bracket because, again, a controversial statement as we like to drop. If you don't either have a better quality of life or are making more money than having a job, then to me that business has failed. I'm not saying you have to make more than having a job, because you might have positioned it so you've got more freedom. You might finish at 3 o'clock every day. You might have Fridays off. So then, that's fine to less than the 40 odd grand you'd get in an employed role, as a, just an example there for a heating engineer or a spark. But those losses, they usually come from, one or more of those 20 small costs that we've talked away at, because they just chip away. And it's that analogy of, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It isn't one big swing of a sword. It's that little leaking bits of money in so many different ways that results then in the business not getting to where it could have gone, should have gone, where you maybe wanted it to go. When you started it, you need to spend the time, look at your business as a business owner, find those little holes in the bucket and fix them, and keep more of the money that you're already coming into the business, plus make more money than you have been doing because of these holes in the bucket.
I agree. Right, that has been a great 2 podcasts. I've really enjoyed that. We've recorded it back to back. You can probably tell, Andy's still in his vest. I've really enjoyed that. That was I think what I'm going to do is, I think we need to go through some of those areas. I know we have in the past, but it's good to just keep talking about this stuff, keep putting it out there in the world. So we'll pick out, or maybe you guys can help us pick out on maybe 2 or 3 key points of those 20 that we've gone through over the past 2 episodes that you would like us to dive in and sort of give that little bit more focused attention. But On that note, I will love you and leave you. We're in the height of summer. I hope you're getting some downtime and enjoying the weather that we're being blessed with at the moment. Make sure you spend some time with your family and your friends, and make sure you're doing a few bits for yourself. On that note, I am now officially a paddle player. You know, I played my third game yesterday and actually won. So I won my first game. I think it was my third or fourth game. And finally won, so I'm buzzing. I've got another game, so make sure you get some time for yourself. You only need an hour. Don't do something for yourself. Make sure your partner gets some time for herself as well. On that note, God bless. See you all on the next one.
Let's go.